Thank you. Good morning and welcome to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach and Calvin Buetenoff coming to you live from our studio here at Radio Park in Racine. You can always join us. You can call, you can text. The number is the same, 855-752-4842. Leave a comment if you're watching on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and what used to be Twitter. We have a very busy show coming up for you today. After 10:30 news, Andrea Watkins is a New York Times bestselling author. She also grew up in a Christian nationalist household, and she has some very interesting insights. A number of the people who wrote Project 2025, which is essentially the playbook now for the second Trump administration, are members of Christian nationalism. And they are now in the White House and in our government. So we're going to be talking about what some of their goals are. And this is related, at least I think, to something that happened recently about members of Congress who have recently given birth. We haven't had a chance to talk about this before, but there was a big dust-up with Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, and one of his members, and we will get into that with Andrea Watkins after 10:33. Jim Santel will be here after 11. He is the host of Amicus, a law review across the network on Saturday mornings from 9 until 11. Going to be talking, among other things, about the number of judges who are ruling against the Trump administration and making him reverse course on some of these executive actions that he's taking because they're not legal.
Yep.
So we'll be talking to attorney Jim Santel coming up after 11 o'clock. 11:33, JR, a Journal Sentinel sports guru, JR Radcliffe, will be joining us to talk. The Brewers have won.
What?
I know.
Oh, I knew that.
I know you did. You're into the Brewers. He will be here to talk all things sports, and we're going to wrap up the show today with This Shouldn't Be a Thing. It is the Gobble Gobble edition with a video element. So stay tuned for that. That's coming up at the end of the show around 11:51. Just briefly, headline right now from CNBC. Dow drops 1,500 points.
Oh, my God.
S&P 500 loses 4% as stock market rout on Trump's tariff worsens. Of course, Donald Trump yesterday waiting until the markets closed, by the way.
Yeah.
He was supposed to originally make this announcement at 1 o'clock.
Yes.
And then pushed it back until 4 after the markets had closed to announce all of these massive tariffs that he is instituting. But don't worry, everybody. Harris Faulkner from Fox News has a message for all of us. Calvin, let's play that clip from Harris Faulkner on Fox, please.
And those 401k people who are depending, those retirees, all of that, just talking plain speak with them. Look, when this nation used to go to war, people in this country would support the war effort with their materials at home and making things for weaponry and all of that. We got to do 100% buy-in over this bumpy period. Just communicate.
Okay.
So we're at war.
Yeah.
But
this is tariff war too.
And this seems to be a self-inflicted war.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
But according to Harris Faulkner, you 401k people, start a garden, get some chickens, raise your own food. We're just got to suck it up for a couple years of pain, you guys. That's it.
Well, I want to play that clip for my mom because she is one of those 401k people.
Is she one of those people?
With the retirees. And, I have a feeling my mom would say directly to Harris Faulkner's face, look, I stayed true. I stayed in it when the Republicans screwed up the economy many times before this, and I'll keep going because I have no other choice. It's not like I have billions of dollars, you millionaire TV superstar.
But don't worry.
Telling people what to do.
You 401k people.
401k people sounds like the just a mean thing to call someone. Almost poor, like calling them poor or something.
Well, as of today, you might be accurate. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to move on from that, though. I did want to do a little recap of the election, which just got wrapped up. Wasn't it nice watching TV last night, everybody? Without all of the political ads, it was revelatory. It was, wow, this is what television used to be like before we were in an election season. But Dan Weiss from the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel has a little recap column about the recent election. Winners and losers. Who were the winners and losers in the Wisconsin election, according to Daniel Weiss? One of his biggest losers, co-president Elon Musk.
Yeah.
spent a lot of money in Wisconsin.
Yes, he did.
Lots and lots of money in Wisconsin. We know it was at least $21 million. But Dan Bice points out that we're not even including all of the money that he handed out to canvassers,
Yep.
to door knockers, to people who would sign that petition against activist judges. They all got $20 apiece.
I think one group, America PAC was paying, because we listened to that video of the door knocker. America PAC was paying people $25 an hour, which actually, hey, that's
Not bad.
Not bad at all. Good on Elon for paying him a living wage. And then there was the $20 to take the pledge.
Yes.
Then there was $100. Wasn't there $100 he was giving away to people too?
I'd have to look. It's confusing. He was throwing so much money around.
I mean, that's the thing too, is if it's one thing we've learned about Elon, especially since the inauguration, he has no plan for anything whatsoever. I mean, the fact that he is so successful leads me to believe that if it wasn't for Daddy's mineral mine in South Africa, he'd be just a dude.
Without a doubt. According to this column from, again, Daniel Bice in the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, as one well-connected Republican put it, it was perfectly fine for Musk to level the financial playing field for Brad Schimmel by dumping more than $20 million into the race, but it was not okay for him to hand out $1 million checks and smaller amounts to others, treating the election essentially like a game show. This GOP operative said the optics were terrible and it hurt Brad Schimmel.
Once again, I'm not smart, Jane. So this GOP operative, who my guess is he probably supported Trump,
I'm assuming,
didn't like that Elon Musk treated our election like a game show to prop up and act as a what did Brad Schimmel say he was going to do? He was going to be
a support
system for the literal game show host that's president right now.
Yes,
he had to appeal to the people in the way they would take it. They would take attention towards it. Paying people this, of course, people are going to get involved that way. But then the next day, what was everyone saying? Elon Musk, Donald Trump. Oh, it wasn't
about the Supreme Court race.
It was no.
It was about the constitutional amendment.
No, yeah.
That's really where their focus was.
Ooh,
which is hilarious. Another article in the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel from Lawrence Andrea with the byline, Brad Schimmel's double-digit Supreme Court loss might have been worse without Elon Musk, according to Ron Johnson. Ron Johnson checking in. That's kind of nice. We never see him. He's never here.
Ron, you here?
Are you here? No, he's not here.
He's not here.
No. Yeah, it was all good. It was all good. Ron Johnson says Tuesday's result was a result of Trump derangement syndrome, which has now turned into Elon Musk derangement. Their base is ginned up, according to Rojo. They're over the top upset that Trump won, and so they're lashing out and responding. Rojo says it's very disappointing that more Wisconsin Republicans who voted for Trump last November apparently did not turn out Tuesday. We don't know that.
Well, it was like 2.1 million people turned out to vote in Wisconsin.
Yes.
So when you break down the population in Wisconsin, a good amount of people, and you can't tell me for a moment, a nanosecond, Mr. Johnson, that in that 2.1 million, people who voted for Susan Crawford were not Republicans. There are Republicans in that vote. It's just not possible. If you look at the electoral map, every county swung a little bit left. Doesn't mean that she won every county.
No.
It just means that a little bit, and for whatever that reason may be. But I think that's truly Wisconsin.
That's why we are the swingiest of the swing states.
We swing the biggest, baby.
We do swing. Also, and this I just think is the height of irony, Justice Rebecca Bradley, who is a conservative on Wisconsin Supreme Court, was asked about the election, the results of the election, Susan Crawford being elected. Let's play this clip, Calvin, please, from Justice Rebecca Bradley.
Why do you think Schimmel lost at the end of the day?
I think that we saw a ridiculous amount of money come in to this election, and I always defend the right of anybody to participate in speaking in elections, and of course that takes money to do it. But when you see $100 million plus being spent on one state Supreme Court race, that is telling you that the Democratic Party is buying another justice, just like they did with Justice Protasewicz. It needs to stop. Otherwise, there is no point in having a court. This is what the legislature is supposed to do, to make political decisions based on policy. That's not what a court's supposed to do. And unfortunately, we're going to see this happening for at least the next several years.
How are you feeling about working with Susan Crawford on the Wisconsin Supreme Court?
I'm not looking forward to working with her because I think she's, as they have accused us of, and it's simply not true. She is bought and paid for by the Democratic Party. I challenge her to rule one time against the Democrats. I haven't seen that yet from any of my liberal colleagues. But having said that, I will work with her like I've worked with all of my other colleagues and get the work done.
Okay. The whole the Democrats are bought and paid for. That is hilarious. That is hilarious.
I think that first of all, I want to apologize for the audio. I didn't realize that was a stereo mix or mono mix. But first of all, what a horrible thing to say. What a just nasty, mean, terrible thing to say about people. And then on top of it, you are literally doing what Mitch McConnell and Mike Johnson do all the time, which is you take the facts and you switch them and you say them like they're truth. And you're just like, what? She's bought and sold by the Democrats. You're telling me that Brad Schimmel is bought and sold by the Republicans? How can you even prove that? I don't know, by $20 million from Elon Musk alone.
From one human being.
From one human.
And I saw a chart yesterday that actually listed, because we hear again, George Soros money and all of that stuff. There is no comparison.
No.
There is no comparison to the amount of money that George Soros puts into these races compared to Elon Musk. Coming up, I have an idea.
Ooh.
That could be fun. Stay close. You're listening to Matenaer On Air. This is the Civic Media Radio Network. We'll be right back.
Flatfoot Sam bought an automobile. No money down.
Good morning and welcome back to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, Sweet Calby on the board. Coming to you from our studio at Radio Park in Racine. Join us. Call or text at 855-752-4842. Leave a comment on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and what used to be Twitter. 2 days left for our statewide text to win contest. You could win either a Chula Vista getaway, Milwaukee Brewers Club level tickets, great seats, or $100 cash. And every entry gets you into the grand prize drawing, a brand new queen size mattress set from Verlo. Our next chance with the word of the hour coming up after the 11 o'clock news.
Indeed.
You're going to want to text it in via the Civic Media app, and you will be in the running for one of those great prizes. So join us after the 11 o'clock news. We had a couple texts come in that I just wanted to share quickly before we move on. We were talking about Justice Rebecca Bradley on the Wisconsin Supreme Court saying that, oh, yeah, Susan Crawford's bought and paid for. You know, the elections are bought and paid for. This is a terrible thing. Lori from Shawano says, Citizens United was a conservative baby, and now that it benefits Democrats a little bit once in a while, those same people are now crying about it. Are they okay with striking down Citizens United? Lori, that's a great point and a great question. And I think no. I think they would probably, that they're just fine with Citizens United, provided it works in their favor.
We have a new one. It's called Citizens United, but for conservatives only.
Only, yeah. And Edward also texting in, Maggie, Edward, this is Jane. My name is Jane. And I love that you're confusing me with Maggie. I wish I were as brilliant as Maggie. But this thing in the great people of Wisconsin showed we are fed up with the clown that doesn't do anything but sabotage the United States of America. I do think there were a fair amount of Republicans that voted for Susan Crawford. I do.
I ran some numbers while we were in the last segment. Half of the available registered voting population of Wisconsin voted, and they voted totally. In that number, you break it up, 55% of them voted for Susan Crawford. In that 55%, you cannot tell me with a straight face that none of them were Republicans.
I agree. All right, thank you for those comments. We don't have a whole lot of time on this, but I think this could be fun.
Jane has an idea.
I do have an idea. So in Alabama, according to WBHM Radio, in Alabama, they've started a trend. Cardboard cutouts now stand in for elected leaders at town halls. Remember Flat Stanley?
Yeah.
Remember the Flat Stanley craze?
Oh, yeah.
And everybody would print out this, flat picture of Stanley and take him all over the world and take pictures of him. Well, now in Alabama, Birmingham residents had a question for their Republican representative. He didn't show up. So they had cardboard cutouts to stand in for Senators Katie Britt and Tommy Tuberville.
Oh, Katie Britt, remember her?
Yes, who could forget the Stepford senator.
President Biden.
So I'm just thinking, because we do have some elected officials in Wisconsin who don't like to apparently talk to their constituents face to face.
Yeah.
I think we need some cardboard cutouts, you guys. Come on.
Let's see, we're gonna put an order in for Derek Van Orden.
Speaking of, from News 8000, Derek Van Orden to seek re-election as fellow Republicans ponder path forward after the Supreme Court election. Derek Van Orden, Republican, of course, not known for showing up to talk to his constituents. He has more of a habit of setting a date and a time and then moving it at the last minute.
He's only interested in showing up and yelling at his constituents.
He does like that. I think we should have some flat Derricks.
Yes.
And take him to town halls around Wisconsin. Or whoever your representative is who does not want to show up and talk to you. I think this is an opportunity, you guys, and I think it could be fun.
Actually, I want to do something. This is a Matenaer On Air exclusive. I want to put the call out to Flat Van Orden. I know you're there. I'd like you to come on our show if you have the guts and be interviewed by Jane and myself. And we want to talk to you about your policies. We want to talk to you about your legislative record. We want to talk to you about the things you're doing for your district, Wisconsin, America. So that's the challenge I'm putting out to Flat Van Orden.
To Flat Van Orden?
Flat Van Orden. You're out there.
Just consider it.
It's
just a thought.
I'll bring coffee.
We'll include these articles in the show notes.
Absolutely.
Maybe you will get inspired in your area in Wisconsin if your representative just doesn't seem to want to come face to face with their constituents.
John on the text listening to WAUK, very, very, very good suggestion. Maybe Derek would show up if we held them at a bar.
You might be onto something there, John. Jack from Merrimack is on the line. Good morning, Jack. Thanks for joining us. What do you want to say about this?
Very quickly, the thing about money in this last election, is there really a false equivalency? As you pointed out, nobody came even close to the amount of money that Musk put into the election. But not only that, there's two other things as well. First of all, Schimmel was very clear. He said, I want to be elected to the Supreme Court so I can promote the Musk-Trump presidency agenda.
Yep.
And just incidentally, Musk also has a case involving dealerships in the Wisconsin courts that will probably end up before the Supreme Court.
Yep.
So there's nothing even close. This is just the old right out of the fascist playbook, as Joseph Goebbels, who was Hitler's minister of propaganda, stated, accuse the other side of that of which you are guilty.
Absolutely. You're so right, Jack. Appreciate it. Thanks for checking in.
And that's something I want to ask Jim is, I've been tracking elections for a long time, but maybe he can tell me that I'm wrong. But I don't think there's been a judge's race, at least, where the candidate has just come out and said, oh, I'll help.
I'm here for the administration, for the presidential administration. Yeah.
It's
No,
not about partisan. It's not about impartiality. It's
Yeah.
about that guy's agenda.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that might be a first.
I think it is.
It absolutely might be a first.
Let's make it a last.
Anyway, let's consider the flat Derek idea.
I really love this idea.
You know, just a big cardboard cutout of your representative who refuses to show up. Take him to some town halls. Take him around. Show him the state.
Dress him up.
And share pictures with us.
Yes, please.
When we return, Andra Watkins, New York Times bestselling author, will be with us. Stay close. You are listening to Matenaer On Air. This is the Civic Media Radio Network. We'll be right back.
Blackfoot Sam playing a chuckle-up game. Dice got switched, Sam got to blame. He pulled a gun, shout out the light. Everybody holler, run for your life. Oh, Blackfoot Sam, you're always in a jam. Blackfoot Sam went on a spree, mad a girl weighed 603. Spent all his money, sold all his land. The next thing she did, she got another man. Oh, Blackfoot Sam, you're always in a jam.
Good morning, Andrew. Can you hear me all right?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yep, you sound great.
Okay, good.
We come back in about 4 minutes.
Okay, I'm here.
All right, awesome. We're really looking forward to it.
Me too.
good morning. Welcome to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, Dr. Slide on the board, coming to you live from our studio here at Radio Park in Racine. You can always join us, call or text. The number is the same. It's 855-752-4842. Leave a comment on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and what used to be Twitter. She is a New York Times best-selling author, and she grew up in a Christian nationalist household. And we are delighted to have her back. We're going to have this more of a regular appearance with Andra Watkins is joining us. Good morning, Andra. How you doing?
I'm great. How are you today?
We are good. Wisconsin in a pretty good mood. I know that you have a Wisconsin connection. Your husband actually is from Wisconsin. And in our email exchange, you mentioned our big election on Tuesday with Susan Crawford now moving on to the Wisconsin Supreme Court. That's a big victory here in Wisconsin.
Yes, it was excellent. Michael talked to his mother at length about it. She proudly voted for Susan Crawford. So
Excellent.
we were really excited too.
This is a big deal. I mean, when we were talking about this leading up to the election, this was kind of the template for Elon Musk, I think, that if this had worked in Wisconsin, this was going to be the same thing he is going to take to states around the country to essentially try and buy their elections.
I agree. And I'm so relieved that the people of Wisconsin were smart enough to say that's not what we want and rejected it very, very resoundingly. It
Yeah.
wasn't a small defeat for him.
No, 10 points in Wisconsin is huge.
That's
Yeah.
a very that's Wisconsin telling him something.
Yeah, no
Yeah.
doubt. No doubt. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it was a pretty good mood in Wisconsin, at least for a day. We were pretty,
I'm-
we were pretty happy for a day.
No, I'm still happy. It still feels good. It still feels good to and we've talked about this before with Jane and we have to believe because this was a decisive victory like it was 2 years ago with the last judges race we had, that there are people in the voting mix who probably voted for Crawford, who also voted for Trump, who said, no, a federal level is one thing, but we don't need this in our state. We don't want that here. Just keep your money, keep your big check.
Yeah. As we heard from one woman was quoted on one of the major networks, and she just essentially said, Elon and all his money ruffled her feathers, which I just thought was such a Wisconsin thing to say. It was perfect. It was just perfect. Again, it's like, yeah, good for you. You got your millions.
Yeah.
We don't care. Go away.
Yeah.
Essentially. So anyway.
Yeah, my mother-in-law was a lot more colorful about him, but we won't put that here.
I love your mother-in-law. Should get her on this show. That'd be great. Andrea, tell us a little bit about your background for people who do not understand what it was like growing up in a Christian nationalist household.
Okay, so if you can't tell from listening to me talk, I'm from South Carolina. I spent my whole life in the South. And so I grew up in the buckle of the Bible Belt in a moral majority era Christian nationalist Baptist church in a small town in South Carolina. And I was sent to their segregationist school from kindergarten through 12th grade. So I was indoctrinated in the language and the thought process that Christian nationalists are foisting on America today with their Christo-Fascist Manifesto, Project 2025. So last year, I started dissecting that document and that language for Americans, trying to say, this is not the government you want, Americans. We don't want to live in a Christo-Fascist theocracy, and that's what this is creating. Unfortunately, the majority of Americans chose that either by voting for it or by not voting at all. So here we are today.
And it is important to understand, as you said, Andrea, a number of the authors of Project 2025, including Russ Vought, who is now, and he was one of the main authors of this. Russ Vought is now the head of the Office of Management and Budget in the Trump administration. So these actors, these Christian nationalist actors, are now within this administration.
Yes, and while people want to say that the president is too scattered or too impulsive to implement these policies, a person like Russ Vought is absolutely not. He is strategic, he is intelligent, he is ruthless, and so the president has surrounded himself with people like that who are writing these executive orders for him and advising him from Project 2025 about what they want to tackle next to undo our democracy and install a fascist government.
And in fact, there have been several moves already that are directly out of Project 2025 that Trump has already implemented or written executive orders for.
Yes, the tariff announcement yesterday, Project 2025 delved extensively into tariffs. They primarily focused on China. It was nothing like what got announced yesterday. So yesterday's announcement was really devastating in terms of tariffs, and the goal would be to devastate the United States economy. And that sort of unrest and uncertainty can accelerate this kind of regime change that they're trying to bring about.
One of the elements of Project 2025 and the whole Christian nationalist movement is a particular interest to me as a woman, because I think there are things in this that a lot of folks are not aware of. And it kind of came to a head earlier this week with someone who is actually a Republican. Anna Paulina Luna is a representative from Florida, and she recently had a child and wanted to make a change so that House members who are new parents, both male and female, could vote by proxy for 12 weeks. If you get maternity leave, that it's usually 12 weeks. That's kind of standard. And so all she's asking is that for those first 12 weeks after either giving birth or being the partner of someone who gave birth, that you can vote by proxy for those 12 weeks. And there is major pushback from Mike Johnson and other Republicans about this. It did not go the way the Speaker of the House had hoped, because actually some Republicans sided with this representative. So he essentially took his ball and went home for the rest of the week. But I think it's important for us to look at how these Christian nationalists in particular view women's role, because to them, women shouldn't really have a role in government, should they?
A woman's only role in society, according to Christian nationalists, and they allude to this in Project 2025 several times, is as a wife and mother in the home. So in their mind, the greatest traditional family structure is one man married to one unrelated woman, and they have as many children as God gives them. So that is the structure of traditional family that they are trying to foist upon America. Part of the executive order and the defunding of Title X and Planned Parenthoods goes toward this goal of pushing people into religious types of organizations to get family counseling and reproductive care, which will be anti-contraception, will be pro-marriage, will be anti-divorce, will be anti-sex education of any kind. So that is another example from recent news of this type of thinking and treatment of women. It's delicious to me to watch Representative Luna struggle with this, because she's so indicative of how women on the left align themselves with this and think because they're helping it and because they're supporting it, these men will protect them, that somehow they will be exempted from these draconian decisions and the taking away of women's rights. And so she learned a really valuable lesson this week that that is not the case. And she taught that to some Republican women, hopefully, who are paying attention.
But you know what I saw? Marjorie Taylor Greene jumped all over her for this, essentially saying, if you're not up to the job and if you can't juggle, your new baby and all that stuff, then you don't belong in Congress, because Marjorie Taylor Greene made it work, and therefore you should find a way to make it work. So I don't think there were any Republican women that voted with her on this. I think they were all men. Out of the 9 Republicans that voted with her, they were all men.
Well, and that's something that we should applaud those men for. But also, I've written a lot about how women in the Republican Party and in Christian nationalism are trained to view other women. So Marjorie Taylor Greene's reaction is a perfect example of what I mean by envy. Women in that camp are driven by their envy and regret. So they make decisions based on, how can I punish other women who are trying to get things that I've never been able to have because I had to go along with my conservative Christian nationalist environment. So I denied myself these things. I had babies I didn't want. I didn't have the ability to take off. I had to work, or I came home and stayed home with my baby, or whatever it is that they're talking about. And so they've watched other women for decades be able to have abortions and go to college and have careers. And so now these women are very adamant and are going to enjoy taking rights away from women because they didn't have them. And since they didn't have them, they don't want any other woman to have them either. So
I want you to suffer. I want you to suffer like I had to suffer.
yes. And so it's a very mean girls mentality that gets drilled into these women in this Christian nationalist camp, especially. I used to think that way when I was in it. You relish making other women not have opportunities because you don't think you can have them, or you actively have not had them. And so it's enjoyable to these women to take those rights away from other women. And they feel like somehow they won't be punished and that these men won't somehow turn on them for doing that.
That was my exact question, because you both said it just before this answer got started, is that even though they know that in the Christian nationalist doctrine, they are nothing more seen as mothers and wives and servants to their husbands, they still hold a glimmer of hope that they are going to be seen as, like, if these are the women who are the servants, they're just a little bit above, so they get some sort of special privilege, which ultimately they have to know in the back of their minds that that's never going to happen, because those Christian nationalist men will do whatever they can to sell them out to make sure they have no power whatsoever. Because that's
Right.
just because you're not meant to have power. That's not me, Greg. I'm not saying that. God's saying that, Andrew. God said that, not me. I'm a good guy, but what can I do? You can't be a congressperson anymore.
Well, and that's what's so insidious, and what hasn't been talked about a lot with this is that they were trying to get her and others to sign on to the SAVE Act, which will dramatically reduce women's ability to vote, because women will have to have a birth certificate or a passport that matches their name, their legal name. And since so many women change their names to take married names in America, a lot of women will be disenfranchised by the SAVE Act, and many Americans don't know that. So that was one of the conditions they put on this, which would in effect endanger people like Anna Paulina Luna from running for office in the first place and holding public office at all.
That is the one good thing, I guess, about Mike Johnson taking his ball and going home after they bested Anna Paulina Luna and the other Republicans and the Democrats bested him, at least in this instance, because they were supposed to vote on the SAVE Act today.
Yes.
That was supposed to happen today. They will bring it back, but at least for now, it delayed it, and hopefully is going to give us a little more time to get the word out about what you just said, Andra, about the fact that the SAVE Act, again, ostensibly about voter security and all of that, which is all a lie. They want to limit who gets to vote. And women tend to vote more Democratic than men do. So they better do something to squash those votes. And this is one way that they're going to be able to go about it. We're going to continue our conversation with Andra Watkins. Stay with us. You were listening to Matenaer On Air. This is the Civic Media Radio Network. We'll be right back.
I'm now sad too much. I haven't said enough. I thought that I heard you laughing. I thought that I heard you sing. I think I thought I saw you try. But that was just a dream. Try, cry,
morning and welcome back to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, our resident young person Calvin on the board, coming to you from our studio here at Radio Park in Racine. Join us. You can call or text. It is the same number, 855-752-4842. Leave a comment if you're watching on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, or the platform Elon continues to actively ruin. We are joined by Andrea Watkins, a New York Times best-selling author and also kind of our touchstone for insights into the Christian nationalist movement, because Andrea was raised in that household and was schooled that way for a long time. And right before we went to break, Andrea, we were talking about the SAVE Act that they were supposed to be voting on today. And again, this is all allegedly in the effort of voter integrity and voter, security and all that stuff. The SAVE Act will make it much more difficult for married women who did not legally have their name changed to vote. So if you got married and you just took his name and started using his name, and that's what's on your driver's license, if your driver's license does not match your birth certificate, you're going to have a tougher time voting going forward if they pass the SAVE Act.
That is my understanding. So you have to have an official document that has your given name at birth on it. I didn't take my husband's name when I married because his name is so difficult to say and my first name is so difficult to say. So I kept my maiden name. So I don't have this problem. But I still have been telling my readers for months to order copies of their birth certificates. I was born in a red state. I ordered 15 or 20 official copies of my birth certificate months ago because I don't know when they're going to tell me you have to have a birth certificate to prove that you are who you say you are. And so I ordered them despite the fact that my name is the same as it was when I was born. Women who have taken their husband's name need to have that birth certificate to show that they are who they say they are, that this is, I can legally produce this document when you ask for it. And if they make it a requirement with the SAVE Act, then how much do you want to bet that in red states, it'll suddenly be so much harder for women to get that thing?
That's a really
go
good
ahead
point.
and get it now.
That's a really, really good point, Andrea. And the other thing, too, is they are very likely to reject a copy of the birth certificate.
Right.
They
or
want the original.
One of
they
the,
want an original. They want an original that's going to have that raised seal on it.
Right. And so I ordered 15 or 20 copies of mine. And I strongly encourage women who are listening to do that today. If you're close to Milwaukee, you can go to Milwaukee and pick it up, probably for a very small fee. If you're not, you can order them online.
But you make a great point, especially for women in red states. All of a sudden, there's going to be a big slowdown and a big backlog in women trying to get their copies of these. And it could take months and months and months and months.
Right. And that's by design. So I did want to come back and point that out before we moved on to another discussion topic.
I think the other thing you're going to hear a lot of people saying too is, I didn't expect this was going to happen, which we hear more and more every day. But Andrew, I wanted to ask you a question, because in that first segment, what you were talking about there was a lot of just the being a woman in Christian nationalism, what's expected, what you are and viewed as. And I'm sure in a perfect world in Christian nationalism, a woman can be who she is, a mother, a wife, a servant to God, perfectly and happily, wake up every day with a purpose, go to bed every night, feeling like they've done something wonderful for their religion. But we're humans. And I'm wondering, how do women in Christian nationalism cope? Is there a higher sense of alcoholism? Is there drug use? It just feels like there's such a heavy, hard burden on women to exist within this organization that nobody's perfect and people bend and break. What have you viewed in your experience?
I believe a lot of women in Christian nationalism become overt and covert narcissists. It's more likely that they become covert narcissists because women are supposed to present as sweet and benign in Christian nationalism, but they engage in a lot of narcissistic abuse to keep other women in line, to feel powerful themselves, to feel like they're in control of something, because that's a lot of what narcissism is about feeling like you have control over your sphere. So I believe it causes a lot of that kind of mental and emotional abuse behaviors in women. Um, I was a child and a teenager when I was in it. So if there were women who were alcoholics or who were abusing drugs or who were morbidly depressed and contemplating suicide, I wouldn't have known things like that. And if women carried out some of those things, we wouldn't have talked about it at church at all. The
Right.
only therapy that women were given was read the Bible and pray and try harder.
Well, and because again, everything is the fault of the woman in Christian nationalism.
Yes, because Eve ate the fruit first and sinned first and tempted Adam to fall with her. And they literally interpret that and believe that's why women deserve to be second class citizens for all time.
Yeah. And you know why the snake offered the apple to Eve? Because if he had offered it to Adam, Adam never would have found it. I've told my husband to go in the fridge and get some milk, and he can't find it because you have to move one thing over. So that's why the snake said, "Here, take this," because he'll be looking forever. He'll never
And
find
he
it
won't ask for
anyway.
directions, but I'm cheese.
Exactly. Andrew Watkins has a great Substack called For Such a Time as This. We will include that in our show notes. Follow her, subscribe. We're going to have Andrew back in a couple months. Thank you so very much for your time. It's so insightful. Andrew Watkins has been our guest. Take care, my friend. News is coming up next when we return. It is our statewide text to win Break into Spring contest. And Jim Santel will be here from Amicus, a law review. Stay close. You are listening to Matenaer On Air. This is the Civic Media Radio Network.
Good morning, Jim. Can you hear me all right?
I can hear you well, Kelvin. How about me as I bring the microphone to my mouth here?
You sound great.
Okay, very good. Ready to roll. Very good. Thanks.
Yeah, you know the schedule. This is a long break. We got about
Right.
6
Yeah.
minutes.
At 11:06. Right. Is that the plan?
Yep.
Okay. Good. Well, I'll stay tight until then.
and welcome to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, Calvin Butenoff coming to you live from our studio here at Radio Park in Racine. You can always join us, call or text. The number is the same, 855-752-4842. You can leave a comment if you're watching on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and what used to be Twitter. Before we get to our friend and colleague Jim Santel, host of Amicus, a law review, which I highly encourage you to check out Saturday mornings from 9 to 11 across the Civic Media Network. It is time.
It is time.
It is time. There's only 2 days left for our statewide Text to Win Break into Spring contest. Your chance to pick up a Chula Vista Getaway, Milwaukee Brewers Club level tickets, or $100 in cash. Every entry gets you into the grand prize drawing a brand new queen size mattress set from Verlo Mattress. So get your phone, open up the Civic Media app, go down to the right. There's that little text button.
Yep.
And text in the word radio. RADIO. Radio is the word this hour. We are playing again for those Milwaukee Brewers Club level tickets.
Good stuff.
They are really good seats.
They're
you and I were there.
Padded.
They're padded. You have your own little special bathroom access.
I know.
Very important to me.
Carpeted floors.
Carpeted floors. They're really, really nice seats. And the Brewers have won a couple of games.
Yeah.
So text in the word radio right now, RADIO. Radio is the word to text in by noon today to be in the running for those Brewers tickets. You can be in it just like Terry listening on WAUK. We have Charles from Milwaukee, Kirk from Eau Claire, Michelle, Wisconsin Rapids, Amanda from Madison. They keep coming in. I love it. Wow. I know. Helene from Muscadet, and Steve from Milwaukee, and Aaron from Madison. Radio is the word. Texted in right now via the Civic Media app, RADIO. As we said, Jim Santel, our friend and colleague from Amicus, a law review, is joining us now. Good morning, Jim. How you doing?
Jane, always a pleasure with you and Greg and Calvin. Another historic day. We've had so many of those in American history, but yet another big day in American history, American legal history at least, and for other reasons as well. We've got those tariffs going on apparently too that are just causing international mayhem. But aside from that,
all fine. It's all good. Yes.
It's all a day's work. I'm not even paying attention.
Nothing to see here. Nothing to see here. Let's talk briefly, Jim, about the Wisconsin election on Tuesday with Susan Crawford. Moving on now, she will become Justice Crawford as she joins the Wisconsin Supreme Court. And a lot of people have been giving shout outs to Brad Schimmel for accepting the results. I was a little snarky yesterday, but yes, okay, good job. The bar is so low.
That's exactly the point, Jane,
right?
Jim. Right? Under normal circumstances, as late as I don't know, even in Calvin's lifetime, which is more limited than mine certainly is, but we always remember a time when there was no doubt that this sort of thing simply happened. You lost an election. Yes, if it was incredibly close, you might ask for a recount if it was within tens, maybe hundreds of votes. But the notion that somehow it is news, and it is news, it's good news, that an unsuccessfsful candidate for any position calls the successful candidate, concedes, congratulates, and then, yes, as Judge Schimmel, former Attorney General Schimmel did, say, you know what, we lost today, we live for another day. You can say that as well. It is a stunning indictment of our time. Not what he said. That's the appropriate thing.
Right.
But they were commenting on it and saying, oh, my goodness, look at this. Here is a candidate who's accepting the results, especially, I would note, from a campaign, and here I will be critical, that allied himself with others, including the President of the United States of America and the Vice President, who have done nothing but said for the past 5 years that we don't have to accept the results of any elections, that they're all the products of fraud. It is, I'll say with a small r, refreshing 2 days after this, that we have got a bit of normalcy, a kernel of normalcy returning, and Brad Schimmel appropriately saying to his crowd that wanted him apparently to contest this, he said, no, we're not going to pull this off. He said, we're accepting this result. We're living for another day. It is a small acknowledgement that maybe some civics still work in America.
And that was for me yesterday why I wanted to give some credit to him. What you just said, Jim, is that had he just been a regular candidate, and well, if he was a regular candidate, none of this would have happened. But the fact that he had just tied himself so tightly to the MAGA movement, the fact that he didn't call for fraud or a recount or shake his fist, I was shocked. So that's why I was like, "Huh, good job, Brad."
Right, right. For what it's worth, for those of your listeners or viewers from online, I save all of the things that end up on my door, and you've seen these before. And again, at the interest of maybe doing a little bit of critical review here, one of the very first ones, again, this comes from a campaign that also, again, not only tied itself directly to our president here, but also did all these things that are really bad civics as well, right?
Yeah.
Talking about how anyone, including him, who would be on the Supreme Court, can affect the southern border. What? On the Wisconsin Supreme Court? Can you establish safer cities? No, that's a municipal thing for common councils to do. Sensible spending, that's the legislature, that's the county board. Has nothing to do with the Supreme Court. Again, a campaign that attempted to undermine our fundamental notions of civics. A bit refreshing, as Greg and you have just said, that at least on this point, we're getting some clarity. And it's a lesson. It's a lesson for others in 2026 and beyond. We already have, again, here's the next news, of course. We're going to do this again next year, 2026. Rebecca Bradley, not Ann Walsh Bradley, Rebecca Bradley is up for election. She has already made some very, very, I think, inappropriate comments about the new member of the court who's going to join her. I recognize that that's maybe the world we live in, but it is not a world that the Supreme Court justices themselves should embrace, making those kinds of comments.
Well, and we talked about that last hour, Jim, before you joined us. And if you missed it, Rebecca Bradley essentially said Susan Crawford ran a disgusting campaign, and I am not looking forward to working with her. And she is completely bought and paid for by the Democratic Party, which made me do a spit take after Elon just shelled out more than $20 million in this race to try to get Schimmel on the court. Look up irony, people. Just look up the definition of irony. You might learn something.
Absolutely. And look up, again, the tradition, which has been on the Supreme Court. There have always been, obviously, winners and losers when it comes to elections. We have seen those very recently. Here's what you say, Justice Bradley. What you say is, like all Wisconsinites, I voted for a candidate. I'm not going to tell you who that was. I look forward to working with all of my partners, my colleagues, my associate justices in delivering justice to the people of Wisconsin. Are we going to disagree? Yes, we are. But we're going to have a civilized and thoughtful and legal-based discussion about those things. I'm not going to make these ad hominem attacks. I am going to welcome my new member and make this, a civics lesson about how this should work. And she didn't do that. Decidedly go in the opposite direction.
And assuming I'm assuming she thinks she will be rewarded for that as well, because that does seem to be the kind of behavior and the kind of rhetoric that is embraced. And this is a throwaway, but I was reminded earlier this morning, listening to Pat Kreitlow on Up North News Radio, that Rebecca Bradley said in the past that feminists are all man-hating lesbians. So I'm going to have to tell my husband when I get home, because he's going to be very surprised by that.
Right. And this is the other, Jane, that's the other part of this. It should be a part of the next election. Putting aside these recent comments and those kinds of things, there is an awful lot. There's a huge record here for Rebecca Bradley, as there is for all of the justices now. And that should be the focus of this coming election. It shouldn't be attempting, once again, to ally yourself with the president or others out there in some non-civic space. Teach the Wisconsin population what the Supreme Court does and focus on that. Talk about what you have done. And let's all decide on her candidacy based upon those merits, nothing else.
I love that you're holding up those mailers and those doorknob things. Those things are so big, you could wallpaper that whole wall behind you with those things. They're enormous.
I've got about 20 of these. I purposely saved them. This was the first one. It's the one that I find most offensive again, because it's really saying, candidly, again, this is an attack. This is criticism of Brad Schimmel, which I think is legitimate. It's basically saying that I believe, that is, I, the candidate, believe that the citizenry, I will use the word, is so stupid and so uninformed and so lacking in knowledge about what the Supreme Court does, that you think if we elect me, I'm going to affect southern border immigration policy. I'm assuming by putting this on my door that you're saying to me, you don't know anything about government. You don't know how the state system works, the federal system works. I'm counting on that for your vote. Oh my, how cynical is that?
We talked about this yesterday. There was an operative who came out and said, we figured by trying to give money away, by trying to make it a big game show, by doing all this stuff. And I said, this means you were calling us stupid, that we're too stupid to understand the process, and we're not. Wisconsin came out, and I want to, and we told them thanks, but no thanks to these millionaire dudes who are like, I want this.
Yeah.
Goodbye. See ya.
Well, exactly. And I think, again, it was Wisconsin. We can see carpetbaggers coming. We saw it with Eric Hovde. We saw it with Tim Michaels. It's like, yes, great, you're rich, good for you. Go away.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot. When we return, we're going to continue our conversation with Jim Santel, host of Amicus, a law review. There was a great exchange yesterday between Senators Ted Cruz and Amy Klobuchar. There have been numerous rulings against Donald Trump and some of his extrajudicial or just kind of not
illegal.
Illegal. Yeah, it could be illegal.
He's moonlighting as a judge.
Yeah, apparently. We're going to talk about that when we return. Stay close. Text in the word radio, by the way, RADIO, before noon. You are listening to Matenaer On Air. This is the vast, statewide, countrywide. You can pick us up in Austria if you have the app, baby. Civic Media Radio Network. Good morning and welcome back to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, Calvinator on the board, coming to you from our studio here at Radio Park in Racine. Join us, call or text at 855-752-4842. Leave a comment on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and what used to be Twitter. We're going to continue our conversation with Jim Santel, host of Amicus, a law review, great show Saturday mornings from 9 to 11 across the Civic Media radio network. You will learn so much. But before we get back to our conversation, this is the hour, and it's the second last day.
The penultimate day.
Oh, good word.
Oh, that word.
Penultimate. Our statewide Text to Win Break into Spring contest. The word this hour is radio. R-A-D-I-O. The word this hour, radio. We're playing for Milwaukee Brewers club level tickets. They are great seats. And then everyone who enters will be in the grand prize drawing for a brand new queen size mattress set from Verlo Mattress. So you have until noon. Text it in right now via the Civic Media app, radio, R-A-D-I-O. And you'll be in the running just like Joel from Rothschild, or Tom from Hartford, or Nate from Durand. Oh, I love seeing these names come in. Sid from Ridgeway, and so many, many more. Good luck. Radio is the word this hour, R-A-D-I-O.
Really want to get someone from Butternut.
I know. I just like knowing Butternut, Wisconsin exists. It just makes me happy. I love the name. I do. So, Jim, I want, in the remaining time that we have, to talk about this little exchange between Senators Ted Cruz and Amy Klobuchar from yesterday. Ted Cruz, of course, the judiciary who's ruling against Donald Trump, they're all just, it's lawfare. This is their their new favorite word now is lawfare. Calvin, let's play this clip. This is an edited clip of the exchange between Ted Cruz and Amy Klobuchar.
Democrats today hate democracy. Democrats today are angry at the voters for re-electing Donald Trump and electing a Republican Senate and a Republican House, and they engaged in lawfare to stop democracy from operating.
Okay, that was a lot. Let me start with a few things. Number one, we love the democracy, and I believe what we should be having is a civil debate about how we can best, if Donald Trump wants to make changes to the government, we should be doing it in a legal way,
That'd be
not
nice.
how he's doing it. And the only reason there's all these injunctions, Senator Cruz, is because he's violating the Constitution. I am making the strong case that the reason all these cases have been filed and the reason that these judges who have been appointed by Ronald Reagan, yes, they still exist, and the Bushes and Donald Trump, judges appointed by Donald Trump, have been making these decisions is because this is not legal. Donald Trump himself has used his social media account, the White House account, to post an image of himself wearing a crown saying, "Long live the king." The issue is that we do not live in a kingdom, and Elon Musk is not his court jester.
Well, he kind of.
Ours is a nation of laws in which no one is above the law. That is why 39 different judges from vastly different backgrounds, appointed by 5 different presidents, have made clear that these are illegal actions.
That last line should be like on a flag somewhere.
Yes.
That's amazing wrap up.
But I think it's so important, Jim, that people understand, because they're all Obama and Clinton and liberal justices. That's not true. Just like when all of his back to 2020 and the election was stolen and those more than 60 court cases that were all rejected, these were all kinds of different judges, including Trump appointees.
Absolutely. And Amy Klobuchar's got it just right, not only in terms of where they come from, and recognize too that all of these judges, Senator Cruz, were also approved advice and consent. Remember this, Senator Cruz, in the Constitution by what body? The United States Senate, that put their imprimatur on democratically nominated judges and Republicans. It is unfortunate, Jane and Greg, that we end up even identifying, I end up doing it as well, just because people want to know this information. Who appointed you? Well, the reality is it's behind Amy Klobuchar's wonderful comments. They're all appointed, number one, for life. We can debate whether that's good or bad. That's in our Constitution. What is the good reason? What did Alexander Hamilton and John Jay say about that? The reason why they're appointed for life is because we're going to remove politics from them. unless they engage in very bad behavior, we're asking them to abide by their oath of office. It says the Constitution, the laws, the principles of our nation, that's your boss. And you're not beholden to any political party. This is not lawfare inside the judiciary, outside the judiciary. These decisions, as you just so articulately said, as Amy Klobuchar has said, are made by judges who have one commitment. And many of them, frankly, again, some of the Republican appointed judges are asking out loud, who's standing around next to the president in the Oval Office? Who's telling him that these things, that birthright citizenship passed in the wake of what? The Civil War, when we wanted to ensure that this great population of newly emancipated people had a place in this country? That was the very reason for passing the 14th Amendment. And now we're going to say that, well, if you were born here, maybe not so much. All those kinds of things. The judges across the board know that. That's what we're hearing.
Well, and that's like due process. Yes, due process is part of our legal system. You don't just get to snatch someone off the street and send them to a prison overseas, never to be seen again. That's what sets America apart.
Exactly. And that's why today, one of the historical things that's happening, I think almost as we speak now, James Boasberg, who's got another hearing on whether or not the executive branch frankly violated his orders, saying to keep those Venezuelans here, others, again, being snatched off the streets, as we've seen in Tufts, Columbia, other students, that sort of thing. It's all about that. And judges have not only the obligation, but actually the commitment, the oath commitment to ensure that due process, which is also its Fifth Amendment, its 14th Amendment, it's the key of our entire system. They apply that across the board. There's no fair, F-A-R-E, warfare, lawfare at all in this. We are instead simply upholding the Constitution. And that's what we do in America. We do not engage in violent behavior. If I don't like something that Greg is doing, what do? He takes me into court. I run into court with him. We get this neutral arbiter to decide the case. That's what's going on.
Jim Santel hosts Amicus, a law review every Saturday, 9 to 11 across the network. Please check it out. It is fantastic. Jim, thank you so very much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Always a pleasure, my friends. We'll see you again soon.
Take care.
Thanks,
News
Jim.
is next when we return. All things sports. Journal Sentinel sports guru J.R. Radcliffe will be here. Text in the word radio, R-A-D-I-O, before noon via the Civic Media app. Stay close. You're listening to Matenaer On Air on the Civic Media Radio Network.
Calvin, thanks again.
Good morning, JR. Can you hear me all right?
I can indeed.
All right, awesome. You're sounding great. We come back in about 4 minutes.
All right, sounds good. I'll be there.
Welcome back to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, Calvitini on the board, coming to you live from our studio at Radio Park in Racine. Join us, call or text at 855-752-4842. Leave a comment if you're watching on the live stream. On Facebook, YouTube, and what used to be Twitter, it is underway, our statewide text to win contest. The word you want to text in before noon, we're playing for some Brewers club level tickets. You want to text in the word radio via the Civic Media app, RADIO. Text in the word radio using the Civic Media app before noon today, and you will be in the running for those great Brewers tickets, just like Tom from Sun Prairie, Brennan from Madison. We got Sue Ann from Wausau, and so many more. Text in the word radio, RADIO, before noon today. Not only are you in the running for those great Brewers tickets, but you could pick up the grand prize, a brand new queen-size mattress set from Verlo Mattress. He joins us every Tuesday to talk all things sports. J.R. Radcliffe is here from the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. The Brewers have won.
They did. 2 in a row.
I know. After, come on, they got the beginning, the first couple of games, they were shellacked. It was painful.
We know.
I'm not trying to belabor it. What happened with the big that they actually came back and won a couple?
So yeah, they had a couple good results in a row. I would maybe not point to Wednesday's win as the the paradigm of great Brewers baseball. It wasn't awesome. It was like some not bad base running, but just like not being able to come through in pretty easy scoring situations a couple times, and they were able to win on a walk-off bunt. Love it when the small ball comes through and you're not hitting the ball at all. The little dink up the first base line and it turns into a winning run. They pulled it off. They had some good defense, which is to win 2 out of 3 against Kansas City, win the series. So not bad. They got a really nice pitching performance the night before from a guy named Chad Patrick, who right now is their number 5th starter out of necessity because they are missing so many starting pitchers with injury. And we found out this week they are going to lose another one with Aaron Savali going on the injured list after his first performance in New York. So they have been snake bitten. Every team gets this to some degree. The Brewers maybe a little bit worse than normal, but none of the. I don't think it's maybe dramatically worse than what than what other teams are facing. It's just it happens to be hitting their starting pitching depth right now. Chad Patrick was awesome. He went 4 2/3, didn't give up a run in his first big league start. He's a guy from Indiana. This is his first big league season. He had made an appearance in relief against the Yankees, but then really got to sink his teeth into an outing on Tuesday night and had a really good start. Actually was not feeling well. He said he told me yesterday it was about 80% maybe for that start. So had like 300 people here from Hebron, Indiana, which is where he's from, kind of on the fringes of the Chicago metro up in Northwest Indiana. And it was pretty cool. He said he felt like it was like he was back in high school because he'd walk off and all these familiar faces and people are cheering for him. And I mean, the guy was awesome. So that's probably the best story of the first few games. Brewers are 2-4. They're not markedly off the pace from other teams yet. And they still have a chance to right the ship. And we saw some really good pitching from Freddie Peralta on Wednesday. So that's really, really encouraging. 2 really good starts in a row for him to start the year.
That's been the consistent thing I've been hearing is that Freddie Peralta is really shining even from the very beginning of it, which is important because I feel like everyone's got their fingers crossed for Freddie every year to have a great season. And we want him to just be we all know he's really good, and then he falters. Like all players falter, and I'm not a baseball player, so I'm not saying I'm better. But there's something about Freddie that when he does really well, we just feel good.
Yeah, he I think I always make this comparison to parenting. It's like just at the moment where you stop caring if you ever sleep again, that's when you start sleeping again. Just at the moment you stop thinking Freddie Peralta actually could be that superstar pitcher, you've kind of forgotten that that's even on the table. And he's like, well, he is their best pitcher, but he's limited. Well, he looked like an absolute dude the first 2 outings of the year, particularly in this game. On Wednesday, he went 8 innings. He hasn't done that one other time in his career. That was back in 2019. In fact, he's only gone a full 7 innings like 5 times since then. Out of like almost 100 starts, 99 starts. So that's unusual for him. He's not a guy who works deep in games, and he's not consistent. He's pretty good in stretches. He'll have an inning where he just shuts you down and then he gives up 3 hits the next inning or, loses control and walks people. He hasn't walked a single batter in 2 outings yet this year. And that is including against the Yankees when he gave up 2 home runs in that game, but there were one of them would not have left literally any other ballpark. This is pretty easy to track. You can track like where it lands. If any other ballpark would have allowed that to be a home run, only the Yankees' short porch in right field does that happen. The other one I think would have left maybe 8 or 9 other parks, but it was not. It was also kind of cheap. So, allowing a couple of deep fly balls that are caught in most ballparks is not an indictment. I mean, he is looking really good. And if he is this guy, that changes the calculus a little bit. I mean, the Brewers, I would say, don't really have one guy that like, oh, you need a win. This guy's going to get the ball and you're going to get 6 to 7 shutdown innings. This was their problem. Problem, I say in quotes because they were really good, but relievers had to carry so much of the load since they were really good, had really good starters in 2021. Relievers have really had to step up and fill that gap, especially last year where you didn't have a guy that could reliably go 7 or 8 innings. You just did not have that. And 7 or 8, reliably 7 or 8, that's one of the best pitchers in baseball. Like, but even to get 7 innings every once in a while is something you need from a starter. The Brewers really didn't have that last year, and maybe they do with Freddie. That would be really, really a huge development for them.
Going back to that pitcher that just came up from Indiana, I always think of Bull Durham, and you're going to the show. You're going to the show.
Yeah.
That must really be a thrill because these are young men.
Yeah,
right?
It's so cool. I mean, he was a guy who he was a 4th round draft pick once upon a time by the Diamondbacks, but not a top flight prospect. And then last year, the Brewers acquired him in the offseason in a minor trade. And last year he was sensational. He was in AAA Nashville, and he won what's called the AAA Triple Crown for pitchers. He led both AAA leagues. He led everybody in wins. He was he was 14-1 in strikeouts and ERA among pitchers who threw a certain amount. So he was sensational, but it wasn't obvious, as far as his prospect pedigree goes, it wasn't obvious that he would get added to the 40-man roster this offseason. They had a couple of options and they went with him. And I think it wasn't a slam dunk. It was like, oh, that's interesting. That's maybe not where I thought they were going to go. And he only, he was all packed up, ready to go back to Indiana on his way to Nashville to start the year again. The Brewers had their roster. It was set. All these injuries started to sink in, and they called him on his way back to his apartment to pack. And they were like, stick around. We're going to need you. So one of those great stories. And then he delivers in his first big league start. Really, really cool.
Well, and we wish him well. I really hope he has a great season. That's got to be life-changing.
And he's going to be here for a while because it's not like the pitchers are coming back tomorrow.
Right.
Nestor Cortez is about to leave the team for the birth of a child. So that'll be a short absence, but still, like, the Brewers right now have 2 starting pitchers that you would have thought would start the team in Freddie Peralta and Nestor Cortez. And Nestor Cortez was really bad in his first start. So he pitches again tonight. We'll see how that goes against the Reds, but they need people like Chad Patrick who can even go 5-6 innings. They need bodies right now. And he's up to the task, it seems like.
Well, and the other thing, too, with Freddie Peralta going 8 innings, that is almost unheard of in Brewers organization, let alone the MLB. And, I mean, would be unheard of in the Craig Counsell years. I mean, he would have been out like 4 innings before that, or maybe 7.5 innings, depending how Craig was feeling that day. But can we talk about the bats for a moment?
Sure.
The bats that the Yankees so I haven't had time to really look at this because a world's happening, but the Yankees were using a type of bat against the Brewers in the opener.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm not mistaken, they're the only team using these bats, and what's special about them is the size of the bat and where the strength is concentrated on the item itself.
So yeah, the bat looks like it's bulging a little bit. If you look at the end of the bat, it's like, and the way it was explained is it just concentrated more of the wood in the area that contacts the ball. Why wouldn't you do that? So it looks completely illegal. But it turns out, I learned a lot of things here. It first of all, not illegal, totally fine. They had, nothing gets more scrutinized than pro sports equipment, in terms of like, how can we get an advantage out of this and yet stay within the bounds? So what I also learned is that these are not brand new this year. There were teams experimenting with them last year, teams besides the Yankees. Other teams have, certainly the Yankees have, because they had such a sensational first series against the Brewers and had 17 home runs in a series, which the Brewers have never allowed that before. So they kind of got on the radar, and now other teams, even the Brewers, are trying to order some, I think right now a lot of people think maybe this can help them. So just a quirky little innovation. Time will tell if this dramatically alters anything. It might, it could be one of those things that sticks. I think we'll probably discover that it's only here and there that you see it, and it's not really something that ultimately changes. I mean, Aaron Judge, who hit 4 home runs in that series and is, one of the best, if not the best power hitter in baseball, he did not use one of those bats.
Yeah.
So he's just fine. But yeah, we'll see what the staying power is. I have a feeling this is one of those things people forget about over time, that it just happened, beginning of the season and some success, and like everyone's talking about it. But we'll see where this goes.
If you're just joining us, Journal Sentinel sports guru J.R. Radcliffe is here to talk all things sports. Let's talk a little bit about the Bucks, who are also struggling.
They are, and they did just get a much needed victory a couple nights ago. And the good news for the Bucks is that there is a really light schedule ahead. There are teams on their immediate schedule here that absolutely do not want to win basketball games. They are out of the picture. They want to improve their stock for the lottery for the upcoming NBA draft.
Oh,
And
interesting.
they want, teams want Cooper Flagg from Duke. They want nothing to do with winning games. Not to say that they won't be competitive and go out there and compete. They're not going to like throw the game, but you're not going to see guys that realistically can compete with players on the Bucks. So they've got the 76ers. That's tonight. They got the Pelicans coming up who are in the same boat. They got a Heat team that is not in that boat, but has actually been very good lately, but is not generally very good. So they should be able to make some hay and get back into the race. Right now, they have fallen to the number 6 seed in the East. They cannot fall below that, or they will be in what's called the play-in tournament part. The play-in tournament to get into the main part of the playoffs. That's just not where you want to be. Furthermore, being in 6th spot is already bad because it means you're going to face the Knicks in the first round, the number 3 seed. The Knicks have torched the Bucks this year. The Knicks will torch the Bucks again if we get into the postseason. The Knicks are markedly better than the Bucks, and the Bucks do not have Damian Lillard right now, so they really want to move up to the 5, because if you get up to the 5, you can maybe hang with whoever is in the 4, probably the Pacers. Maybe you can win a series without Damian Lillard, although there is some news that he could be back sooner than we thought, and maybe then you can build on that, get healthy, and actually give a run to somebody, one of those top 2 seeds like the Celtics or the Cavaliers. But they need victories. They need to pile them up. They need to get out of this situation that they're in, because they have just fallen like a rock. It's been real tough.
Calvin, any thoughts on this? You are our biggest Bucks fan. You follow it most closely.
Well, I don't have any particular thoughts on the Bucks. They're not doing well. What I will say about the Knicks, though, I think, while I don't want to play them and I wouldn't feel confident that the Bucks could get them, as it approaches the end of the season for them, they're usually kind of a ticking time bomb for injuries. Tom Thibodeau, their coach, is known for extremely high usage rates with all his star players. They're among the highest, have among the most minutes in the entire league. So they have more wear and tear than a lot of teams.
This is true, although I would say that it's a little different this year because Jalen Brunson, who is their best player, has been hurt, has missed, I want to say a month at this point, early March, and he is about to come back. So he will be presumably rested, although possibly still a little hurt, who knows, but it's not going to be maybe quite the same with Brunson coming back. Even, I mean, especially if we're talking first round before maybe the fatigue kicks in, the Bucks are kind of sitting ducks. They need to get somehow to full strength if they're even going to try to have a hope against New York. And that involves Damian Lillard coming back from a blood clot. And, there's some talk that, again, that could happen sooner rather than later, but that is a dicey proposition. I would not want to rely on Damian Lillard coming back for the playoffs.
I just feel like at this point, the way everyone talks about them, it's like this is not.
This is not the season.
This is not the season.
This is not the season.
And it was disappointing because it felt like we had to do the same thing last year and the same thing the year before that, and now we're just at the point where it's like, where are we with the Bucks?
Yeah.
Read him in the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel. J.R. Radcliffe, the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel sports guru, joins us every other Thursday to talk all things sports. Next time, we'll get around to the tush push, which I thought was a dance and is actually a football play.
Indeed.
We'll discuss that later. Thanks a lot, JR. Appreciate it. Stay close. We're going to wrap it up with This Shouldn't Be a Thing on the other side, the Gobble Gobble edition. Don't go away. You're listening to Matenaer On Air on the Civic Media Radio Network.
Sing, boom, tararo.
Welcome back to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, and Dr. Slide on the board coming to you from our studio at Radio Park in Racine. Join us, call or text at 855-752-4842. You can leave a comment on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and what used to be Twitter. Just under 8 minutes to text in the word radio, R-A-D-I-O. Text in the word radio via the Civic Media app. It is all part of our statewide Text to Win Break into Spring contest. This hour, we're playing for some really nice seats. Milwaukee Brewers club level tickets. If you text in the word radio before noon, R-A-D-I-O, and then everyone who enters will be in the drawing for a brand new queen size mattress from Verlo Mattress. So text in the word radio, R-A-D-I-O. And good luck. Your next chance in the 1 o'clock hour with a wonderful and our friend Todd Alba. And then in the 4 p.m. hour with Dom Salvia. But right now, the word is radio. Send it in like Kate from Hayward, or Tim from Park Falls, or Liz from Sun Prairie. Oh, I love this.
Wow, look at all this.
Steve from La Crosse, and Butternut somewhere out there.
Somewhere
there's someone from Butternut who is listening.
You can't tell me that there isn't a person within the confines of the municipality of Butternut who hasn't texted this show.
Louise from Kewanee and Jim from Germantown. Thank you for all your entries. Text in the word radio, R-A-D-I-O. Coming up on the show tomorrow, Randy Manor, retired Major General, will be joining us at 10:30. Signalgate, as much as the Republicans would like it to go away, it hasn't gone away. And as a matter of fact, influencer Laura Loomer.
Do we call her that?
Laura Loomer was at the White House today.
Yeah.
Met with Donald Trump. And he has apparently gotten rid of 10 people from the National Security Council in the wake of Signalgate per her recommendations.
Whatever. Okay.
But we're going to talk to Randy Manor about the whole Signalgate and how communications are supposed to happen when there is a military action that is going to be coming. That's typically not something that you do on a platform that can get hacked.
I Snapchat all of my war ideas to the generals. They know it. They see it coming.
And then Dan Schaefer, of course, will be here from the recombobulation area in the 11 o'clock hour. And the recombobulation area, by the way, just picked up a whole bunch of awards from the Milwaukee Press Club.
6.
Yeah. So if you don't subscribe yet, you really should. Dan and his friends and
His
co-authors,
team,
his team really do an incredible job. So join us tomorrow for Randy Manor and then Dan Schaefer. Right now, though, 11:54, Calvin, getting late. It is time for...
This shouldn't be a thing.
If you have a thing you think should not be, send it in to Greg and me at janesays@civicmedia.us. From UPI, Ben Hooper, that lucky guy.
He's our
our go-to guy.
I think I'm going to try to see if it's possible to get him on the show.
We should. Headline reads, Wild Turkeys Chase Mail Carrier out of Massachusetts neighborhood. A Massachusetts mail carrier, this is from Tuesday, encountered an unusual job site hazard when he was chased through a neighborhood by wild turkeys, and all of it was caught on camera. Postal Service worker Wayne White's struggle with the flock of fowl.
Nice, Ben Hooper.
Ben was recorded by another home security camera. Quote, I've come close with dogs. I do a lot of stuff in Nantucket, so I see deer all the time. But this is my first time with turkeys. Once I got out, they came after me.
Yes.
You saw me defending with the box and whatnot. When I got to the step, I was like, okay, here we are. Got to get back. Make a run for it. White, the Postal Service employee, says the turkeys chased him out of the neighborhood. Every time I moved the truck, the turkeys followed. He said his encounter with the turkeys has given him a reputation. Quote, all day long it's been gobble, gobble texts and turkey texts. And I just can't imagine what Thanksgiving is going to be like this year. We will include the video in the show notes so you can take a look yourself.
We did get an interview with one of the turkeys. They were quoted as saying, gobble, gobble, go Sox, Sox forever.
Right.
I just love the idea of wild turkey. I wish it just would have stopped at Massachusetts, like wild turkeys chase mail carriers out of Massachusetts.
There are, if you've ever had an encounter with a turkey, though, they're big birds. We have some in Wauwatosa. I was driving down North Avenue the other day.
Yeah.
Traffic was stopped waiting for these two gigundo turkeys to cross the street.
Shizu on the live stream said there are turkeys in my neighborhood that require the Roosevelt quote, walk softly and carry a big stick. Animals are mean people, okay? Disney did us dirty.
We'll have David Drake on to talk about that sometime. That wraps up today's episode of
This Shouldn't Be a Thing.
Thank you, Greg and Calvin, and all of our engineers, because without you, nothing works. And thank you most of all for calling and for texting and for listening. It really means the world. I hope you find some joy today and you have the chance to share it. We have news coming up next, followed by Todd Alba from noon to 2. So keep it right here on the Civic Media Radio Network. We'll see you tomorrow.